Hello, class number 5. We are headed into physical geography right now. So, looking at Oceania, primarily the continent of Australia, the land down under. So we're looking at natural resources, right? Let's go ahead and pull out number 25. And also pull out your reading too, follow along. Because again, there are things that I'm going to be going over that are not in your reading. They like to add little fun little nuggets of information and wisdom that I can pass on to you about Australia and the islands around it. All right, natural resources. Let's take a look at this. Interesting. I even learned some stuff today. Or not today, but as I was reading this and learning more about it. It says the mid-19th century was an exciting time for gold prospectors and get-rich schemers around the world. In 1849, frontier settlers in the U.S. territory of California discovered gold nuggets in a riverbed, prompting a massive wave of 300,000 prospectors. Prospectors. The prospectors, termed 49ers, from which San Francisco's NFL franchise derives its name. So how many of y'all are 49ers fans? Any Niners fans? I'm sorry, it just hasn't been good for you for a while. Turned out in droves to claim their fortune, some of whom ultimately found it, but most of whom went home empty-handed. Actually, I have no idea how the 49ers have been doing. I don't follow a whole lot of professional sports lately, so I don't know. The last time I followed the 49ers was like Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. And you guys probably haven't even heard of them. It's okay. It says 2 years later, and 7,500 miles away, the scenario was repeated. This time, location was southeastern Australia. Beginning in New South Wales and eventually centering on Victoria, the rush brought hundreds of thousands of prospector immigrants to the young colony, dramatically spurring growth in Melbourne and Sydney, and among other large cities. So we know that Australia is primarily a desert nation, but at the same time, God has provided for Australia to become a prosperous nation. How? We see that in this instance, He provided gold. There was gold in the ground that people see as valuable. And so even though it's a desert continent, He provided something that men could work for and work towards to be able to gain wealth or make wealth, which is what He promises. He says that He will give the ability to make wealth to His people. So we see that Australia, many people came to try to get rich quick. Some people did, but many did not. It says the Australian event was by many measures more successful than California's, producing hundreds of tons of gold across thousands of square miles. So the gold rush of Australia actually is more successful than the one of America. It says after gold dwindled, Australians continued to find gold throughout the region even into the 1870s. So we're talking about it has started in 1851. And even into the 1870s, people were still getting gold. It says the scope also widened as prospectors poured in, as eventually gold was found in every Australian state and territory. So Australia has quite a bit of wealth. Aside from the wealth it brought to Australia, the gold rush was even more significant for being the spark behind the Pacific Coast development. So says it was the first step on a long road to a high standard of living in a westernized culture. So this gold rush, what it did for the economy and what it did for the nation is that it brought people there for a reason and a purpose, as opposed to just it being left alone as just a desert continent mostly. People actually came there. This gold drew them there. And that's what oftentimes things like that produce. It brings growth. When you draw and attract a lot of people there, it's going to bring growth and advancement. So we see that God provided for them, and let's see, what else? Says, while prospectors no longer dig through riverbeds with pans and shovels, scouring soil or protruding gold nuggets, excuse me, Australia's history of gold production was just beginning in the mid 19th century. Today, 11% of the world's gold still comes from Australia, allowing the land down under to vie with China and South Africa for first place. So, top gold producers, if you look at the chart below, right, says China, South Africa, the US, Australia, and Peru. So China cranks out quite a bit with 295 kilograms. This was in 2008, so it might be more. 295 kilograms a year. South Africa with 250, US from 230, and Australia with 225, which is pretty amazing because it's still relatively small for producing that much gold. Let me see. I'm going to pull up something else here. Give me one moment. Uh-oh. I pulled up the wrong one. So I need 25. Give me one moment. I apologize. So again, so how do we see God providing for Australia? Number one, again, is that He has actually provided an abundance of minerals, and we'll get more into that. So we've seen gold, but along with gold, so if you skip down to this part right here, there's also a list of other things that are other minerals that they have. Says that, actually, you know what, I'm going to keep reading down there. It says the 2007 yield was more than 309 tons of gold for Australia, in total worth around 12 billion Australian dollars. The location of mining activities has shifted somewhat, however. While areas like the Latrobe Valley or Hunter Valley in Victoria and New South Wales, respectively, continue to produce gold, much of the mining today occurs in South Australia and Western Australia. One region of Western Australia is named Goldfields Esperance, a testament to the lucrative industry. Australia's largest open-pit gold mine is located in Kalgoorlie Boulder, a massive area that yields a couple of dozen tons per year. A couple of dozen, so like 24 tons, 24,000 pounds of gold a year. Tasmania has some gold, but aggressive mining has depleted much of its stores. So I'm going to let you continue to read. So Australia not only has gold, but it's also got a lot of other minerals, and that's something that God has provided. And so in that, we can see God's provision through natural resources for mankind in their country, in their nation, in their, what do you call it, in their, on their continent. So He provides. He gives the ability to provide. So again, so I'm going to have you read all the way, let's see. So I want you to read the rest of page 24 and then page 25 up until right here, where it says New Caledonia, or Caledonia, right here. And you can follow along. It says New Caledonia is exploring other industries to stabilize economic growth. So in this reading, it talks about an area or an island called New Caledonia. And what happened is it's the world's largest nickel exporter. But one of the hard things is that it's almost solely, that's what their economy is based upon. And the hard thing about that is that over time, nickel prices have gone up and down. And so when you base your entire economic growth and what's the word for it? When your entire economy is based upon one product, one export, it makes it very hard because sometimes the value of nickel goes up, sometimes the value of nickel goes down, and with that, your economy just goes like, goes up and down and up and down, and it's not stable, and it's very hard on the people. And so what one of the solutions is, and what one of the things that they're looking to do, is to do something called diversification. And diversification is simply stated just producing or having more than one or two or three things that help to bring economic stability to your continent or to your country. And so for Australia, or for this island of New Caledonia, they're looking into different exports they can use to be able to stabilize their economy. Because as long as it's just solely dependent on one thing, on one factor, on this one product, nickel, as long as it's just dependent on one thing, if the price of that crashes or goes down quickly, it's going to be devastating to the country. We see this happen, I've told you before, in my wife's nation of Venezuela, where they were very dependent upon oil to export, and when oil prices went down the past few years, it significantly hurt the nation because of the fact that they no longer had the revenue from these oil products to be able to do the things they were doing. So that will be it for now. That will we'll finish up. That was number 20. Again, number 25. Natural resources, Oceania, God's gift to man. Just the really understanding how the fact that God gives us natural resources to be able to take care of us, to be able to produce, to be able to to make wealth, to expand his kingdom. So if you got any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll talk to you later.